Hello, everybody. I'm Rachel Phillips Buck, VP for Student Success at Fairs Resources, joined today for Cap and Gown by our president, Matt Boisvert. Hey, Matt.
Hi, Rachel. You just missed, like, in the last 15 seconds as we were about to come on, I almost had a disaster with my water. So
Uh-oh.
if you're wondering why I was smiling, it's
That's
because
why.
that was close.
I thought you were smiling because this is season 6, episode 7, which in my house, we would be honoring 6-7, the word of the year.
Yeah.
My 13-year-old still can't really tell me what it means, but it shows up all the time. It's kind
That's
of shocking.
the whole point, I think.
I guess so. Just trying to find it places.
It's very 6-7 of you.
Very 6-7. So our episode today is all about our 2025 recap. We're going to give you a bonus book that if you have some free time over the next couple of weeks, you can look up and read. It's called Flinch. It's going to be really fun to talk about. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. It was kind of a much needed. So both my wife's family and my family came to my town, which has never happened. So we had a lot of Thanksgiving and got I would say for a lot of reasons, it was pretty perfect.
Good.
Of course, by the end of it, being an introvert, my battery was drained and I had to go and recharge. But
take a little break.
Yeah.
Well, it was good. You said you wanted to talk about pie. I want to tell you what happened at my house with pie. Okay. So it's just me and my husband and my daughter. Yeah. And our friends sell pies. And so I was like, okay, guys, we're going to buy a pie for Thanksgiving. There's only 3 of us, So what pie do you want? And my daughter said apple. And my husband said pumpkin. And I said pecan. Yeah, and so we had 3 pies. And you know who ate theirs first? Lillian. Hers was gone like in a day. It was shocking. She kept being like, I have more pie. And I'm like, it's Thanksgiving. As long as you're grateful for it, you can do whatever you want. So we still have a little bit of pumpkin and pecan left over, but the apple is polished off.
So. This is the first Thanksgiving I can remember that I did not eat pecan pie. And I feel bad about it.
Listen, I have some. I'll bring you some. No problem. Okay. Well, also, Matt, you and me and Callie are all going to be in Nashville for SAC-COC next week. Yeah. So that will be really fun. If you're going to be there, come and find us. We will have a booth. Looking forward to that. I think Callie is taking some people to the Grand Ole Opry because she was very interested in that. She's like, Rachel, Matt, do you want to go? And we're like, no, but you should take some clients. So hopefully she's.
I think she asked me on the wrong day.
You just weren't feeling
like I'm done. My battery's gone.
For sure.
But we'll have a great time. And I don't know, I'm just gonna shamelessly plug. If you go to SACs and you come to our booth, I guess is what they're called, exhibit hall. Booth. We've got these cool little flashlights. I mean, they're super thin. I gave my mom one, and she texted me this morning and told me how awesome it is.
Yeah, they're magnetic. Mine's just on the fridge. So it's nice. Anytime I'm like, where's there a flashlight? The answer's on the fridge. They're very good.
Anyway, come to us.
I want to talk about rhythm of the academic year. Happy December. We've made it. We're on the home stretch. The theme for December is bittersweet. Okay. Matt, I just want to take you back. I was thinking one of the very first things that we think about in December with this bittersweet is this very bittersweet feeling you have, especially if you're a freshman and you've spent your first semester away from home. Maybe if you've gone far away from home, you haven't come home at all. Maybe you just went home for Thanksgiving and now you're about to come home again. But this feeling of like excitement and also anxiety about going home for a month after you have had the freedom of being at college, after you've made new friends, you haven't spent, time with your high school friends. And there's just this like wrestle of both excitement and anxiety about what that's going to look like.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's kind of like being a third culture kid, you know what I mean? Where like you have where you grew up and then you went off and you had all of these new experiences that the people at home haven't had. And then you come back and you're just a little bit changed. Even if it's not a lot, you just have adjustments to make because you've had experiences that your kind of home base haven't experienced.
It's an interesting time because I was thinking, I mean, you and I both traveled far to go to our alma mater and then going back home. And of course, it took me a week to recharge from all of that. But then there is this reflection. So I start to find out what all of my friends, what's really going on with them at their universities. That's an interesting, right? Like lens, and like how is it different than what I'm experiencing? And then I'm thinking about the people who were on my hall, and at the end of this break, my roommate who grew up with me, and we were great friends in high school, and so we had this really deep conversation about, do we want to go back? It was
right,
because there's a lot pulling on you. So
for sure. So you think about all of that anxiety happening, you think about academic realizations hitting, because even if you're the most optimistic student, right now is about the time where you're like, probably should have gone to class more than once, probably should have turned in my assignments. Like the reality of academics hitting, or even if you worked really hard and just college is harder than you expected or harder than your high school, you're having like a lot of anxiety around that. Yeah. Students are not getting a lot of sleep because they're thinking about their finals. And we're always reminding our practitioners, like, this is the time where you have students where you can go find them, where you can have an in-person conversation about, have you registered for next semester? What are your plans? Are you coming back? What do we need to do so that you're happy about coming back? And if you have students who are not coming back, this is a perfect time to do exit surveys with them, because when they're sitting in the room with you and you're asking questions, you're going to get much more accurate answers to those than if you just send them a survey. So I always say, even if you can't survey every student who's leaving, any student that you can survey to try to understand better what their experience is going to be really powerful data for you. So those are the themes of December. Matt, when I came home I hadn't been home at all my first semester. When I came home for Christmas, my mom did my laundry. And I was like, you're so kind, woman. Thank you. Like, why are you doing my laundry? This is mine. You shouldn't have to do it, because I just spent the whole semester having to do it. I had a new appreciation for my kind mother who was willing to do my laundry for me so I didn't have to do it. So maybe you'll get some of that too. Right? Possible. Yep. Okay, sure. Let's see if there's anything else that I want to talk about. I think that's all my chit chat that we have. Oh, one more thing. This was going to be our last episode this semester, but I had to cancel with Sherry a couple of weeks ago because I was sick. And so we're going to do a bonus episode on the 9th talking about the hidden cost of work. So that's going to be awesome. Please join us for that. It'll be lots of fun. Don't be confused that we have one more after the last episode. Anything you want to add?
No, that's great. Let's get into the State of the Union.
Oh, so you're not allowed to say it. Let's talk about the State of the Union. Matt, part of the State of the Union is, I'm going to just be transparent in two things. The first one is that Bailey isn't with us today. She had a conflict. So Rachel Elam is doing all of our stuff, which is a huge job for her to come in and do. So she's doing an awesome job. Thank you, Z, for that. And then also, if you are regular watchers of us, you know that our last 2 episodes, I had a sound problem with my computer where I could not hear. And Bailey had to come in and sit next to me so that I could hear on her computer. And it was kind of a wreck. If you watch, you'll kind of see me being like a little bit distracted when you're talking. So we've done everything that we know to do for that to not happen this time. But if it does, I'm just going to put in my headphones and we're just going to keep going. Okay. So be brave. If I disappear from sound, be brave.
Well, we'll see if anyone ever actually noticed, because I was orbiting the giant hairball and trying to unpack that. And
we're doing great.
Whew.
Okay. Rough. My theme today for State of the Union is, there's a bunch of talk about anxiety. There's a bunch of anxiety and things going on that I think people just feel uncertain about. And my goal today is to try to unpack that a little bit so that we can feel like well-informed in the context of the life of our country, what's happening in education in general. And then I have a couple of fun things that we're going to talk about too. So I don't know if you've seen the kind of kerfuffle about professional degrees. So the education department just recently wrote a proposal. It's going to go up for formal comment in 2026, early 2026. And the meat of this proposal is capping loans for a number of advanced degrees, master's and doctoral programs. So the goal of this is to make it so that if you are pursuing a degree where either you're not going to make a lot of money, we don't want you to go into debt hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you are going to go into one of those degrees where we really need more people to be there and you need an advanced degree to do it, that we're giving you some money to be able to do that. So there are certain degrees, I'll read you the list of them, that are going to be eligible for a student to take out higher student loans. The kerfuffle about it is that nursing has not been listed as a professional degree, which has nothing to do with the student's level of competency or their capacity of the degree program. It has nothing to do with that. So I think people are feeling like they were being downgraded. Nursing was being downgraded because it wasn't included in this list. But really, I have some statistics that are going to help us understand that a little bit.
So, Rachel, it's a distinction between being a professional degree and a graduate
degree. So if the degree falls in these 11 categories, which I'm about to read to you, a student pursuing one of these degrees can take out up to $50,000 a year for 4 years, or $200,000 in total. Meanwhile, a student in any other graduate degree program can only borrow $20,000 a year or $100,000. Okay, so we're resourcing this other kind of degree differently than we are what we're considering graduate and professional degrees. Let's see, if there were a student to pursue a master's in public health and a medical degree or any other combination of degrees from these two categories, they have a limit of $300,000. So it's not per degree, it's per person. They don't want you to go over a certain amount of money. Okay, here are the 11 degrees considered professional under the draft rule. Okay. Medicine, osteopathic medicine, podiatry, chiropractic, optometry, pharmacy, dentistry, veterinary medicine, law, theology, and clinical psychology. So those are all considered professional and graduate degrees. Here's part of the reason why this is coming about. So between 2000 and 2020, the number of Americans who had taken out federal student loans doubled from 21 million to about 45 million, and the amount they owed skyrocketed from $387 billion to $1.8 trillion. That's according to a 2024 report from the Brookings Institute, which is a nonpartisan DC think tank. Okay, so they basically are like, hey, what is going on? There's a lot of money being spent here because students have access to all of this money. So colleges then are able to raise their prices. A lot of that debt is coming from graduate students. So the amount of undergraduate loans decreased between 2010 and 2021, but the amount of graduate student loans grew. Although individual graduate students only make up about 21% of all borrowers, they could soon be responsible for the majority of outstanding debt. So that's kind of outpacing this undergraduate piece. Between 2000 and 2024, the median net tuition and fees among graduate programs has more than tripled, and the median debt principal among graduate borrowers has grown from $34,000 to $50,000. So that's kind of what this is trying to solve. Yeah. We want to place a cap so that there's less money available, so that schools will then be like, oh, we can't triple our price. We've got to make it more affordable with kind of a reset of their tuition. Specifically around nursing, the education department says that internal data indicates that 95% of nursing students borrow below the $20,000 annual loan limit and would not be affected by this new cap. They also added that the new loan cap only applies to post-baccalaureate degrees, and about 80% of the nursing workforce just has an associate's degree in nursing or a Bachelor of Science in nursing, both of which you can get certified as a nurse without having to go to get a master's degree or beyond that. So those are the facts. Remember, this is not permanent. Like, it's not a law right now. They're going to put it up for comment. It's going to be 30 days. They're going to read what you say about it. And then in the end, Congress can still make a change to the law and they can decide to do something totally different.
Yeah. You know, I think people, I think I told you overheard a conversation from a teacher, and they were very frustrated with this not being recognized as having a professional degree.
Yeah.
Like, so, right. So they're taking that kind of personally. Like,
I mean, it's bad language, right? It's bad language. We should call it something different, but
it should, but whatever you call it, because if it's, I don't know, if it's like whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. That's where we stand with that. Just wanted to clear up some of that. The other thing, Matt, that I wanted to talk about is, that this administration has said basically the goal is that the education department is going to be closed and they're going to parse out all of their different things to different areas of the government. So there are 3 offices that have not been outsourced in the education department. Those are the Offices for Civil Rights, Special Education, and Federal Student Aid. Those 3 offices oversee some of the department's most direct services to taxpayers, including Pell Grants, federal student loans, discrimination complaints, and individualized education programs for students with disabilities. So those 3 are going to stay right now in the education department. There's not going to be a lot of changes there, although, like I said, the goal eventually of this administration is to shut that down. So really, a lot of the higher education policy analysts are saying not much is changing. Congress still is going to decide how much money is available and what it should go towards. The Department of Education is still going to receive funding. They're going to post grant applications. They're going to set guidelines for competitions for those grants. The big thing is that the money is now not going to go directly from the education department to the institutions. It's going to be funneled through these other departments that now are in charge of where they are. I want to read you a list. The Office of Elementary and Secondary Education is moving to the U.S. Department of Labor.
So it's not going away. It's just moving from the Department of Education.
The oversight is moving. The Office of Post-Secondary Education, institution-based grants is going to the Labor Department. Indian Education Programs is going to the U.S. Department of Interior. On-campus child care support for parents enrolled in college to the U.S. Is going to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Foreign medical accreditation to HHS, and then the International Education and Foreign Language Studies programs is going to the U.S. Department of State. The one that I want to camp on for just a minute is that the Department of Labor, which their job is the welfare of wage earners and advancing opportunities for profitable employment. That is their stated mission. So the idea is that creating workers of tomorrow is best housed in a department which thinks about workers of tomorrow day and night. Like, that is their vision for what they're supposed to be doing. So it's interesting, right? We see this connection between jobs and higher education and liberal arts. And it's an interesting thread that's kind of going through here, but I think people are feeling very anxious about it as well. One more thing that I want to tell you about that before you tell me what you think about it.
Okay.
Is there's a great article inside Higher Ed. It's called Trump Isn't the First President to Try to Break Up ED. But what it does is it talks about the evolution of the education department. It's 200 years old. It has had these ups and downs and name changes and funding and cutting funding and moving around. And like this article is, I think, like 8 pages long. And it just goes through from, what did I tell you, 1867 up until now, the ebb and flow of what the education department has been. So if you are interested, I always think it's really helpful to have the context of, got a long time with the education department. It comes and goes and moves and changes. And that context, longevity wise, I think is really, really helpful. So I think that article is worth the read. Anything you want to say about that?
Well, it's always good. I would just say it's always good for us to wrestle. And I actually think it ties into our conversation today. It's always good to wrestle with, institutional issues or things that are like, why is this concrete right now? Does it have to be concrete? Are we happy with the results that we're seeing? I'll just tell you, Rachel, I'm not happy when I look at school systems like in Baltimore, and I read that, something like almost every school in Baltimore, students are failing in math. They're not proficient in math. And I was looking at 26% of students in Baltimore are proficient in math. And so thinking about, like, are we happy with that? If we understand, we talk about STEM, we talk about how important these things are, talk about how will our country be competitive with countries like India or China that are really knocking it out when it comes to some really important things like math. And so
I think when we look at the status quo is not good enough, right? I think everybody
it's okay to assess it, and moving things around is different than eliminating, right? So when I'm like, is it better to have these things connected to the Department of Labor? I don't know. When was the last time we tried that? And what perspective could we gain from what the Labor Department has to say? So
yeah, for sure. Well, very relevant is this article out of the San Diego Union Tribune, which says that UC San Diego this fall, 665 of their incoming freshmen, which is 8.5% of their total incoming freshman class, were placed in Math 2, a remedial course meant for students who aren't prepared yet for a foundational course in pre-calculus. 5 years ago, 32 students, not 32%, 32 students, 0.5% were placed in that class.
Yeah.
So in some cases, students couldn't answer simple addition questions. In some cases, they couldn't round the number 374,518 to the nearest 100. This coincides, so these are the students that had this experience during COVID. Its effects on education, the elimination of standardized testing, grade inflation, the expansion of admissions, which we'll talk about in just a minute, for schools who are worried about our, what do we call it, cliff? Enrollment cliff. This school, UC San Diego, says admitting large numbers of students who are profoundly underprepared risks harming the very students we hope to support, setting them up for failure. When our resources are more constrained, we cannot take on more remedial education than we can responsibly and effectively deliver, which I love, Matt. You and I say that to schools all the time. What is your capacity to serve? Yeah. You do no one any favors to stretch that capacity where you can't serve anybody effectively because you have such a big population there, right? More concerning, of these students, so enrollment rose by about 16,000 students at this school. Right now it's at 45,000. And the majority of the students at this school are studying majoring in fields that involve science, technology, math, and medicine. So that's another element to this piece, right? It's not like they're coming in and they're going to be like poets, for example, where maybe you don't have to be so good at math. Like, they're pursuing degrees where math is really foundational. And so, this school, it says, has spent billions on dorms and labs and classrooms in order to increase their enrollment. And yet, this unprecedented demand for admission, they don't have the capacity to serve these students who are underprepared in math academically. So
it's like, again, if we just look at this whole upstream, if we're looking at this upstream, and so here you have UCSD, and they're opening enrollment, and this is now a challenge, and so we have to find teachers who can teach remedial math. I looked it up, and in California, in the San Diego Unified School District, 43% of students in the school district, that's 95,000 students, 43% of them are proficient in math according to their 2025 CAA SPP, which is how well are our students doing on these subjects. So 43% of all of San Diego Unified School District are proficient in math. And so we can't be happy with that. And the solution isn't to just admit them and let them have majors in get a degree when they can't be an engineer or a scientist or a doctor. Like, that's not the solution. We have to
or
go
they
back.
we just have to figure out how to level them up. I mean, that's the problem, right? Is that we have two choices. We either level them up or we just say like, yeah, there's nothing to be done about it. So
it's a huge problem, and it's not just UCSDs.
In other good news, I feel like Debbie Downer during this State of the Union.
Yeah.
There's an article coming out of the Hechinger report, which I really love. They do really great, deep analytics in higher education. They have an article about as the number of applicants decline, college admissions gets kinder and gentler, which is an interesting way to put what I'm about to tell you. So, getting into college is getting easier. Admissions offices are trying to lure more applicants from a declining pool of 18-year-olds. They're creating one-click applications. They're waiving application fees. They're offering admissions to high school seniors who haven't even applied, and they're recruiting students after the traditional May 1st cutoff. So you have Harvard and Caltech, right, who admit 1 out of 33 students, but that is not the norm. Most colleges overall now accept about 6 out of 10 students who apply. That is up from 5 out of 10 a decade ago. So it's getting a little bit easier for you to get into college. Some of the things that people are doing, for example, is like, if you come visit our campus, we'll give you an extra $1,000 per semester towards your tuition, because schools know if you come to visit, you're more likely to attend. Cal State is the largest system to deploy so-called direct admission, which is you're automatically accepted if you earn at least a C in this list of required high school courses. There are public universities or systems in many states that offer this idea of direct admissions. One-click college admit, which is Illinois' program. High school students can have their transcripts provided instantly to 10 of the state's 12 four-year public universities and all of its community colleges, and get back a guaranteed offer admission to at least one, depending on what their grades are. More than 210 private colleges have arranged through the Common App to extend offers of direct admission for the coming academic year to students who filled out the Common App but have not applied to their institution. So that's almost twice as many as last year. The Common App says 119 institutions in 35 states have made more than 733,000 unsolicited offers. One more piece of information for you. 2,000 schools continue to make submitting the results of the ACT and SAT scores optional. And the median high school student gets more than 100 letters and emails from colleges and universities each month. Holy moly. So,
it's competitive out there.
Yeah. So I put all of those articles together because I think that's a system, right? We can see a lot of systemic things that need to be fixed. We have a declining population. We have a population that has high academic need. We have colleges who are like, you can get in no matter what, which then contributes to what the make of your class is. It's just, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of moving pieces to this. And Matt, I will tell you, I think when we talk to schools, we hear this all the time. Like, they don't have the data behind it, but they're like, we are having students who are underprepared academically. We're concerned about our budget numbers. I think schools are really experiencing the realities of all of the things that we're talking about, right?
And I'm just, I'm trying not to be too Ron Swanson here, but does it matter if it's under the Department of Education or the Department of Labor, if that's what's going on?
It's a big problem either way, right?
Right.
Okay, let me talk to you about something else crazy, but this is not as depressing crazy, okay? Inside Higher Ed has an article about students who have 4+ majors. What are we doing?
4 majors. Not 4 years to complete their major.
No. 4
majors.
4, 5, 6, 7 majors. I'm not making that up. 7. 7 is the highest in this article. I know that I exaggerate sometimes, but 7. Okay.
Sometimes.
So what is happening? There's an example here of a student who came in. She had all of her CLEP testing and her AP credits and all of that stuff. And so she came in And she wanted a typical 4-year college experience. And her advisor was like, you have like 2 semesters. So you can graduate early or you can just add majors. And she's like, well, I want a 4-year experience. So I'm just going to add majors. So she was majoring in finance and business analytics. Then she had more time. She was still having trouble filling her schedule. So she added entrepreneurship and emerging enterprises. Then she added economics. So 5 majors for her because she was like, I want to be here and be part of this experience, but I need to keep taking classes. Okay. So students are saying the reason they're doing this is because employers like it. And employers are like, no, we don't.
It's not for the employer.
Can you help me understand why you put these things together? Matt, I was telling you when I was an advisor, I would say you can be an interdisciplinary degree as long as you can explain why you have included each of these things in your major, right? This prepares me to do this, and then I'm supplementing with this. But if you just have kind of willy-nilly majors, you have to be able to articulate how that's going to make you a better worker. Okay. One more thing about this. There's a student who is taking 27 credit hours per semester over ASU's maximum of 18 credits. They had to require special permission.
Arizona State.
Yeah, they were going to the gym, they were going to breakfast, and then they were going to 9 straight hours of classes starting at 9 o'clock. 9 hours of classes every day. Which, am I making it up, or is it 1 hour of class to 3 hours of studying? So I don't know how that's possible.
No one does that, Rachel.
Also, there's a student in here who is at the University of Oklahoma. He has taken 50 credits every semester for the past several years, a record he is hoping to get recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records. How can you take 50 hours?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, doesn't block tuition stop after a certain number? So I don't know
either. Go ahead.
Well, I would maybe I'm missing the point. I thought the point was to just, go to college, get a degree, and get a job. But
yeah, I mean, I would argue like I like learning. If I have time and capacity, then sure, why wouldn't I want to take more courses, especially if I have blocked tuition and I don't have to pay more for it. I think there comes a place like in this article, faculty at Amherst was like, no, you can only have 2 majors. Arizona State was like, we don't dictate what students can do. We aim to be student-centric in our decision making. That means we do not have a blanket policy or recommendations for students with regards to the number of majors they pursue. And I would argue that is not student-centric. I would argue if you are caring for your student, you don't let them take 50 hours a semester.
So it cannot be the norm. Like this cannot be the future. We cannot have, because it really, what I would say is it waters down the candidates. Like if everyone has 4 degrees, like what do you actually know?
Yeah.
Have you actually learned? If you're taking this many courses, I just don't know how much you're actually learning. And but that's my curmudgeon side. And on my optimistic side, I would say we should track the progress of these students who are identified.
Yeah,
the guy who wants to complete 50 hours, let's find out, how
it goes.
All I know is that, a lot of people we would look to in America as, economically successful dropped out of college. So it's like, hopefully these guys are, women are learning something and they're able to apply it and change the world.
Yeah.
That's my positive spin.
I think like many things having to do with students, that an individual story is incredibly important to giving context to what they're doing, right? So you could have a student who's doing 50 hours a semester and it's a terrible idea and that's a mistake. And you could have someone who's doing it and listen to their story and be like, okay, I get it. That's maybe a good idea for you. So
the big takeaway for me is that if students have that much capacity after completing one or a double major like accounting and finance, that you provide for them an easy 3+2 master's program. Like that ought to be the path, not, hey, why don't you go get 2 more undergraduate degrees? If you have that capacity, let's move you on and get your master's and get you going.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, the State of the Union is real long today, sorry. But this one I like. I'm ending on a cheerful note, okay? California community colleges developed an intervention around belonging. 6 colleges in the system participated in the study. It's 1,100 students. They did something which is very, very rare in higher education, which is they had 578 students in the belonging program, but they did a control of 582 students, which I have feelings about that, but okay, that's what they did. The belonging intervention is given in the first semester math and English courses. The intervention is this. Students had to analyze survey data from peers at their college, which showed that many others worried about their academic success, experienced loneliness, faced additional challenges to help normalize these anxieties about college. So first they read like, oh, look, this is what people are saying. Then they read testimonials from students about their initial concerns starting college and how they overcame those challenges. Then they wrote reflections of their own transitions to college, and it kind of was couched in the, you're going to offer advice to future students about how to overcome concerns or reassure them that those feelings are normal. So once they've done all of that, the idea is that as you speak out that reality, then you kind of absorb it. Students who participated in the belonging program were more likely to re-enroll for the next term compared to peers in the control group, especially true for students with high financial need or those from racial minorities. In the control group, there was a 14% gap between low and high income students' probability of re-enrolling. After the intervention, the re-enrollment gap dropped to 6 percentage points. And similarly, low-income students who participated in the intervention had a GPA that was 0.21 points higher than their peers who did not. Black students who participated in the exercise saw an average gain of 0.46 points in their weighted GPA. So very interesting. There's a lot of talk about pushing this to like bridge programs, having faculty share about their struggles in college, which is really helpful for students to be able to hear. But I like that reflection of like, yeah, this is normal. Like you're going to read a whole bunch of stuff from students who say it's normal and that's not weird for you to feel that way. That's right. You're feeling the right things.
So to me, Rachel, this is a great bridge into our conversation, not only our wrap up of intentionality, but specifically Flinch, because the difference, what they're doing is they're actually highlighting a way that these students can change behavior in a positive way, flinching forward. And so as we talk about flinching forward, this is a great article that really, and so I can kind of accept the control group in this because it's new. We're adding a thing. So it would be like your discovery program. Not everyone volunteered to be a part of it, right? And so if you're a student who has not yet decided on a major and you volunteer to be a part of this, you're in our group. Now, okay.
There's a lot of problems with it. Sorry.
But at least we have a sense of like, do these things make have a positive impact?
Yes, I totally agree. And it seems like pretty low hanging fruit, right? It's not a gigantic program. It's just, we're going to have these students reflect on what they hear. So that is the state of the crazy town State of the Union.
State of the Union.
I know.
Rachel. Usually when you run long on State of the Union, what I take away from that is you don't really want to talk about the things I don't want to talk about with the we're gonna drag there's a lot going on in the State of the Union.
There's a lot going on. Okay. So this is our semester wrap up. Remember, it's a little bit tricky because this is like a semester wrap up, but also a year wrap up. We do at the end of every semester, we do a wrap up, but then this is our theme for this year was intentionality, which is choosing to move forward with things that you have considered, right? We want you to consider things and be like, yes, I'm doing this, or this is how I'm going to do it. Not fall into like, oh gosh, what's happening now? So I'm going to create our anchor for our reflection. I'm going to talk about some of the episodes that we've done, but the anchor is this book Flinch, which you really love. I'm going to talk about what is like the automatic flinch, and then will you talk about kind of the how we turn that to be a good thing. So you guys have heard me talk before about danger brain. This is the reptilian part of your brain, which back in the old days, when a lion was chasing you to eat you, you would flinch, right? You'd be like, oh gosh, the lion's going to eat me. And that was your way of avoiding significant danger. And you didn't have time to be like, hold on a second, is that lion really going to eat me? No, because you're running for your life and you have to get away from danger. Well, we continue to have that thing in modern day society. Our danger brain turns on and we are like, I'm in danger, I'm afraid, I'm anxious, I have to get away from this. And this book says we can actually turn that into something that can be a really powerful tool for us.
Uh-oh.
It's your turn. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, so where do you want me to go from that? Julian Smith, great. You know, I read this book. Let me just unpack. I've read this book a long time ago. I don't know. Maybe it came out in 2011. 2011. And so it actually came at a really important time as we were starting Ferris, and we were, you know, experiencing a lot of challenges. I'm a huge Seth Godin fan, as you know, and this was part of his Domino project. And so you could probably find it if you just Googled Flinch, Julian Smith, from the Domino project. But for me, this idea of, so exactly as you described, the original kind of setting up of it is, if you think about a boxer and he steps into the ring, and that boxer has to have really prepared himself for what's about to happen. And so gets in the ring. If in that ring the other boxer goes to swing, you know, throw a punch, and the reaction is a flinch, is a defensive, just a scared flinch, or so bad that there's very little flinch in it, they could really seriously get hurt, right? So what a boxer does is they teach themselves how to flinch forward, how to use this thing that's going on in your brain, so that you can, rather than be what is described as, you know, to draw back or shrink from what's dangerous or difficult or unpleasant, or to shrink back when you get hit and you're in pain, but rather to learn how to be ready for it and take those things on, because that is kind of what it takes to move forward. And so there's in the book, there's this part where I'm just going to read this. For anything you want to do, finding out how is easy. Do the research and make it happen, or so any book would have you believe. Yet every day you do all the things. You continue to do them. You continue to smoke. You continue to eat poorly. You continue to stay at a bad job. Every day you do the exact opposite of what you've planned to do, and why. And the steps to achieve any goal are easy to search for, come up with, write down on a napkin, but you're still not doing it. Something's missing in the thing, that big X. The thing that's missing is your flinch. It's that you're not moving forward into it. And so Julian writes, the flinch is your real opponent. Information isn't going to help you fight it. It's behind everything that you're unhappy with. Behind the flinch is pain avoidance. And dealing with pain demands strength you may not think you have. And like I said, in 2012, when I was reading this, I needed it, because there's just it's hard to move forward when it hurts, right? It's just, it's sure. Hard. And so this was a book that really resonated with me. And so how to train yourself, to step forward, knowing that it could hurt.
Yeah.
And when we apply that to everything we've talked about when it comes to intentionality, so when we apply it to orbiting the giant hairball, or we apply it to slow productivity, or we apply it to our brains and being unafraid, like our time with Suzette Parker. There's a lot that we can kind of tie all these things together with. So that's why I wanted
So let's unpack that. So one of our last episodes, we talked about orbiting the giant hairball. Reminder, the hairball is policy, procedure, conformity, compliance, rigidity, and submission to the status quo. All of the things that are your favorite and mine. While orbiting is originality, rule breaking, nonconformity, experimentation, and innovation. So this idea where you are close enough to the gravity pull of this institution and you haven't spun off where you're like a crazy woman and nobody knows what you're doing, but you're in this place where you're close enough to be in the gravitational pull. I was thinking about this, Matt, with policies, and I think we do a lot of flinching about policies. I think especially in the moment. I think there's a place where students need a thing and we're like, well, sorry, it says that, or the book, the rule is, or the policy is, or whatever. And I understand we need those things. But one of the things in this book is that you need to have a folder of student failures, and you need to not flinch from that. And you need to say, this is a place where we failed a student. What are we going to make sure? How are we going to make sure that never happens again? And you've heard me tell before, I used to sit on academic suspension meetings. And one time we had a faculty member who was like, you have to let this kid back in. I have confidence in him. He's just had a rough semester, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, we let him back in. He had to meet with me for his academic suspension or academic probation. He wouldn't come. I called the faculty member and I said, this student is not coming to see me. And the faculty member said, yeah, he's really hard to get in touch with. I guess she's just going to have another bad semester. There's nothing we can do about it. And I was like, okay, well, we failed that student because he's going to fail out of school and he's going to have another semester of debt. Right. And I will never do that again. When I'm in an academic suspension meeting or probation meeting, I am going to say, for a person who argues this student should stay, I'm going to say, how are you going to be responsible for them? What are you going to do? Because otherwise, what are we doing? Right?
Yeah.
It's a great example of here's a place we failed a student, and I don't want that to ever happen again. So,
I think what he did was flinch. He's like, yeah, that's just difficult. And what you're saying is, so what I love in this example is, if you kept a folder of all the times that a student was failed by the institution, by your team or someone else, another office, if you had that and you took that to every meeting, pretty soon, this is where this is where orbiting the hairball is helpful because you don't want to get too crazy. But what you start to do is say, we cannot let this stand. We can't just say, yeah, that's the way it goes. How do we fix this? So it's a good example.
That. Okay. I want to remind you guys about another episode that we did. Do you have something else to say?
No.
Okay.
Well, I love this one. Yeah.
Another episode we did with you, Pike, Stephanie, and Megan. They were incredible. It's one of my favorites. They're just you just meet some people sometime where you're like, dang, they are not kidding around. Yeah. They are committed to student success. So a couple of the things that they said that I really love, first of all, the right information at the right time. We don't give all of the information at orientation because it's too much and no one can remember it, right? So you have to figure out how you deliver exactly the right information when a student needs it so that they can absorb it because it's relevant to what they're going through right now. And you remember, Matt, they had an intervention where they were like, our students aren't registering for classes. They're not getting their financial aid done. They aren't paying their bills. What are we going to do? We can't get them to come to the office. And they said their advisor, the director of the business office, and the director of financial aid went to every single one of their U100 classes with a worksheet. And we're like, we're going to walk through this so that in this moment you can get it done. And then if we have to do something else, you'll know where I am and you can come and see me. But talk about not flinching. Talk about being because you and I have services, where they're like, oh yeah, well, we can't do that. There's nothing to be done. Right. Nope. There is something that you can do and it's painful.
Yeah. It's going to be painful.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. It is worth it. And what they've done is they have changed the culture right? So, I mean, people aren't surprised. So the first time people are kind of surprised. The second time they do it, people are like, oh, I mean, they're they mean business, right?
Yeah. And it is such a good example of upstream thinking, because yes, it's hard, but you are solving a problem that down the line is going to cause more pain and more anxiety and more hardship for your students and for your institution. So I just love that example of being like, we can solve that problem and here's how we're going to do it. So yeah, it's a good one.
That was a great one.
Yeah. So our book this semester was Slow Productivity. I want to pull out a couple of things from that. Remember, we talked about working at a natural pace, which is really nice in higher education because we have a rhythm of the academic year. And we have some times where things are high intensity. We talked about that in terms of farming. Like you wake up and like all the crops have to come in. And so you don't take rest. You just work. And then we also have these times of low intensity where we're reflective, where we talked about it like fishing, where you walk to the stream and then you stand in the stream and you catch some fish, and you take a break. And that rhythm for us is really important. And Matt, I always say this is true with technology in higher education. If you miss your deadline, you have a year, because there is one time where we're registering our freshmen for classes. And if you don't hit that deadline, it's over until the next August, right? So being really in tune with that low intensity, high intensity, and understanding that there's this natural pace that we can anticipate and build our schedule and our lives around is super important. Anything to add about that?
No, well, you just took me back to the stream, so no.
Yeah. Oh, look.
Oh boy.
I've got my gestures on. Okay. One more thing I want to talk about from Slow Productivity is overhead tax, which has just been so helpful to me. This idea that there are seemingly simple tasks that someone asks you, can you just do this thing? And you're like, no, I can't, because there's 72 steps before I can actually do that thing. And making that transparent so that everybody understands. When you send me an email, can you really quick? We talked about this with Early Alert. Like, no, I can't really quick. I have to do all of these things so that then I can get to the student. And how do we get efficient about those things, but also tell the truth about how much work is there, and understanding that there's overhead tax for any of those different pieces. So, you and I were saying, like, every new student success program you launch without stopping something else is flinching from a hard choice, because it's easier just to be like, do another thing, instead of being like, hold on, how are the things we're doing working? And if they're not working, I know it's painful. I know you've invested in them, but we have to have measurements. And if they're not working, we have to stop doing them. And that can be really difficult for people, I think.
Yeah, I think if our listeners would really assess the cost of saying yes to these things, and sometimes those, of course, we want to do good things, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things that could go away, and really, would anyone miss them?
Yeah. Which is tied to this other idea in Slow Productivity, which is about obsessing about quality. So we don't want to just look busy. We want to do really excellent work. And in that episode, Matt, you and I talked about messaging for students, how words can be cheap now that we have AI. Like, it doesn't cost you anything to write an email to a student every single day. Right. That's a terrible practice, right? So what we have to do is think about quality, and how do we have good communication with our students without them being overwhelmed. And I will double down on the idea that you should create a student account where you get all of the emails that a student gets in a day. Because I will tell you, I am an online, non-traditional student, and I get emails about the bus not working, about the fire alarm went off in the res halls last night, about internships that I can get if I'm a psychology major, about me. Like, I get so many emails, none of them pertain to me. So one really important piece is to go in and be like, how are we going to make sure that we're giving excellent messaging, not busy messaging and kind of overwhelming messaging, which,
right.
Yeah. One other thing that came out of there that I just want to remind everybody, and that is doing a red, yellow, green survey on your students mid-semester about how faculty are doing. So faculty in the classroom would say, I want you to rate how I'm doing. give me some gut check feedback, in the third week or midterms. And then we're going to stop and address that. And I'm going to look and see if there's something that I need to improve. So I love that. Okay, 2 more for you. Do you want to talk briefly about the institutional excellence chain, which also came out of that episode?
Sure. Well, just briefly, I think that, where I get really passionate is, so I think I've talked about Hope College and some of the work that they're doing, but every institution, every one of our universities want to have loyal, engaged, contributing alumni. And, if you want to improve enrollment, you got to have alumni who love your institution. It's like, well, how do we get those? And so this idea of the chain for institutional excellence, which ends with, financial stability, that the institution is solid, that alumni are contributing in every way at every age or years since graduation. It all starts at the very beginning is internal excellence, that your internals are focused on high quality systems, right? So we want to have the best faculty. We're going to be rigorous in our pursuit for great faculty. We're going to have the systems in place to recognize great faculty and reward them and promote them and move them and support them through so that they're even better in the classroom, right? So this excellence, internal excellence, leads to your faculty and staff so not just faculty, but for your entire community, that your employees then are happy because they have a great system and they're proud of and they're recognized, and all of that leads to very satisfied faculty and staff. And what faculty and staff who are very satisfied lead to is a great experience for your students, and mentoring and the connections and people who are free and all of these things that we've talked about lead to a student experience engagement with faculty and staff that is remarkable. And that experience then leads to this graduating student who you've transformed their life. And so if you want this outcome of highly engaged alumni who are contributing in all of these ways and supporting your students, you have to start at the very beginning, which is your culture and your systems and what are all the pieces, so that we know, we talk about, how we just communicate to our internally and externally. And so we make sure that everything's aligned. And well, you just wrote a whole paper on this, I know. But this idea is, a lot of times people are always looking for this outcome. But again, upstream, the only way you get that outcome is that you have your faculty, your staff, your community who love being there.
Right.
And if they love being there and they show up to things like, I don't know, for many of our schools that have chapel, do your employees, do your faculty and staff go to chapel? If not, you might want to know why.
I mean, Matt, right? I was thinking about graduation dinners that are happening right now for different colleges.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I know a school where none of the faculty go. And I'm like, why?
Wow.
No, we don't have to. Okay.
Right on the other side of this wall, just a little piece of information. I have my film room, which you've seen. It's a collection of VHS and camcorder videos, and I have a recording from my senior dinner from my college, and I have it because it was meaningful to me, like I bought it kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was meaningful to me because all of these professors who changed my life, I wanted to be connected with them, and I wanted to have that memory, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
I have to digitize all of those because no one has a VCR anymore. I don't even.
Yeah.
But that is a great example. If your employees don't want to go to the dinner because they don't have to, you've got you're not creating this experience for your students where they look back as alum and say, that was important and I want to contribute to that.
Yeah. Okay, here's my closing for our recap. And that is just that we have to remember that every student that we come in contact with is faced with this idea of flinching backward or flinching forward. And, when we talk about danger brain and we talk about a sense of belonging and all of those different elements, students are just in a very volatile time. Like, there's so much going on. They're learning so many things, not just academically, but in student development. And first of all, we want to meet them in this place where we're asking them to do hard things. We want to meet them there and be like, you can do hard things. You can flinch forward. It's going to be okay. You don't have to be afraid of being uncomfortable or pain or doing something that is unpleasant. You actually can confront that and do really hard things. But also, I think for our listeners, you can't do that unless you're doing it in your own life, right? So Matt, sometimes I think we forget how hard what we're asking our students to do is.
Yeah.
And if we are not practicing that and showing them, look at what I do. I think about Dr. Sherry Woosley, who does, she just picks a thing that's really hard and she learns how to do it. And she's like, the reason I do it is because I want to remember what it's like to have to do these things, because you never want to be so old that you're like, I don't do things that I have to learn, right? You want to constantly be engaging that muscle and be practicing this idea of how we step forward into things that are really hard. One of the action items coming out of this book is challenge yourself by doing something that hurts or is hard on purpose. Hard exercise, a very cold shower, something that makes your brain scream with how hard it is, and then try to tolerate it. The goal is not to get used to it. It's to learn that you can survive through hard things. And I think putting that into practice is so important, not just as a model for our students, but so that we can show up in our lives in a really intentional way and not be afraid, but do hard things. So any closing remarks on that?
I think there's a lot of good examples for that. Something hard. But I think that's a great way to end. To me, the issue is if you look at it and you're just not doing what it takes to move forward, and you're just living in status quo, you'll never achieve excellence if that's what you're doing. And so that's the hard part. Is the only way to really achieve excellence is to put yourself out there, and kind of it might be for an introvert. That's a different pain than for an extrovert, right?
For sure, yeah.
And so thinking about it in that way, for you, what would be a challenge for you? Is it a challenge for you to walk across campus and meet someone new? Is that a challenge for you? Well, it's probably worth doing,
Yeah,
so.
for sure.
Thanks,
All
Rachel.
right. Well, that's all we have to say today, but we will have a bonus episode December 9th. Dr. Sherry Woosley is going to come and talk about the hidden tasks of work, which is always such a good conversation. Otherwise, rhythm of the academic year, you're in a bittersweet season. So thank you for taking time out to share an hour with us, and we see you, and you're doing good work. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.